The Aboriginal inhabitants of Egypt, often referred to as the indigenous populations, were primarily the early ancient Egyptians, who established the foundations of one of the world's most influential civilizations. Egypt's indigenous peoples date back to prehistoric times, with evidence of human habitation in the region as early as 40,000 BCE. These early inhabitants are responsible for creating the sophisticated civilization that thrived along the Nile River, known for its monumental architecture, art, religion, and advancements in science and governance. Prehistoric Egypt. Before the rise of the pharaonic state around 3100 BCE, Egypt was home to a variety of prehistoric cultures. These early societies were hunters, gatherers, and later agriculturalists who settled along the Nile due to its fertile land. The desertification of the Sahara around 6000 BCE pushed nomadic groups toward the river, where they developed irrigation-based farming communities. These groups formed small settlements that evolved into the first organized states and kingdoms. Notable prehistoric cultures include Badarian culture circa 4400–4000 BCE, the earliest known culture to practice agriculture and create distinct pottery and tools, Nakota cultures 4000–3000 BCE. These successive cultures were increasingly complex and began to show signs of social stratification, trade networks, and early forms of writing and religious symbols. Early dynastic period and the rise of ancient Egypt. By approximately 3100 BCE, Upper and Lower Egypt were unified under the first pharaoh, believed to be King Narmer or Men's, marking the beginning of the early dynastic period. The indigenous population of Egypt at this time had already developed a centralized state, advanced agricultural techniques, and a pantheon of deities, which would be crucial elements of Egyptian society for the next 3 millennia. The indigenous Egyptians were ethnically diverse due to Egypt's position as a crossroads between Africa, the Middle East, and the Mediterranean. However, the core of Egyptian civilization was built by people native to the Nile Valley, whose distinctive culture and language shaped ancient Egypt's identity. Ethnic composition. The ancient Egyptians were primarily of African origin, particularly those from the southern part of Egypt, Upper Egypt, near Nubia. Genetic studies and artistic depictions suggest a population that was a blend of Afro-Asiatic peoples, influenced by neighboring Nubian, Berber, and Semitic groups. The complexion and physical characteristics of ancient Egyptians varied across regions, reflecting the historical movement of people along the Nile and into surrounding areas. Nubians, who lived to the south of Egypt, had a significant relationship with the Egyptians, ranging from trade partnerships to conflicts and periods of dominance, such as the 25th dynasty, when Nubian kings ruled Egypt. Indigenous contributions to Egyptian civilization. The indigenous populations of Egypt are credited with some of the most profound cultural and technological contributions in human history. These include hieroglyphic writing system. The Egyptians developed one of the world's earliest writing systems, which served as the foundation for later alphabets. Religious practices. Indigenous Egyptians believed in a complex pantheon of gods, and their religious practices, including the concept of the afterlife, were deeply embedded in daily life and governance, architecture, and monumental construction. Indigenous Egyptians are renowned for building the Great Pyramids, the Sphinx, and numerous temples. These structures demonstrate their architectural genius and their ability to organize large-scale labor for communal projects. Art and science. Egyptian advances in art, medicine, astronomy, and mathematics were key contributions. They developed a sophisticated understanding of geometry, essential for their monumental architecture, and made important strides in medical knowledge. Indigenous groups today in modern Egypt. The indigenous peoples who retain distinct cultural identities include the Nubians and the Bia people. The Nubians, though historically linked to the kingdom of Kush and the ancient Egyptians, were displaced in the 20th century by the construction of the Aswan High Dam. The Bia people, an indigenous group from the eastern desert, maintain their own language and traditions, though they too have faced challenges from modernization and urbanization. Today, Egypt is a diverse country with a rich mixture of African, Arab, and Mediterranean influences. However, the legacy of Egypt's Aboriginal populations remains a defining feature of the nation's historical and cultural identity. The great monuments of the pharaohs, the hieroglyphic script, and the religious beliefs of ancient Egypt all stem from the indigenous people who built one of the most remarkable civilizations in human history.